Happy Halloween month, everybody, and Tony here with my review of Rossini's Il Barbiere di Siviglia with conductor Friedrich Pretorius, which I saw at the Deutsche Oper Berlin. This marks the second time I saw Katharina Thalbach's production of Rossini's Il Barbiere di Siviglia at the Deutsche Oper Berlin because I wanted to see and hear Marco Filippo Romano perform the role of Dottore Bartolo. And as I saw and heard him tonight, I was quite enthralled with his overall comic timing as well as his penchant for using his acting skills to make the best out of Dottore Bartolo's self-important pomposity as well as his overall flair for just making Dr. Bartolo a lovable oaf, totally full of pompousness and a whole lot of self-importance and just an overall fun and lovable oaf. I first heard about this comic baritone through name only. I saw him on YouTube singing Don Profondo's aria from Il Viaggio a Reims, Medaglie Incomparabile, and I thought that his voice was quite decent to listen to. It also had a nice velvety timbre to it, and as I heard him live, his voice was still in tip-top shape in terms of what he was able to do as an actor. It's not the deepest or the roundest or the richest voice I've ever heard, but it's got a whole lot of vocal acting going for it. And it's got some inflections that make Signore Romano stand out tonight in his own special way. Yes, when it comes to Dottore Bartolo, I do prefer deeper, richer, lower, and even chestier voices found in Salvatore Baccaloni, Melchiorre Luise, Fernando Correnna, Fritz Ollendorf, and Alfredo Mariotti, as well as Enzo Dara, because I totally love the depth, richness, darkness, and overall strength in their voices, despite specializing a lot of these comic roles. And lest I forget about baritones who have sung Dottore Bartolo, most notably Renato Capecchi, who was also a renowned Figaro, as well as Sesto Bruscantini. What I also noticed about Signore Marco Filippo Romano is that he seems to follow the paths of previous comic baritones, such as Gaetano Pini Corsi, Sesto Bruscantini, Renato Capecchi, John Reardon, Alberto Rinaldi, and Claudio Desderi. And while I believe that Signore Romano doesn't approach the cavernous tones found in Salvatore Baccaloni, or even the much deeper, richer tones found in Günther von Kannen, or even to some extent Gustav Neidlinger, Marco Filippo Romano was still a good comic actor, and he was still able to act with his voice really effectively in terms of imbuing Dottore Bartolo with pompousness, as well as oafishness that still made him quite lovable. In fact, this is a voice that is more adept at singing Figaro, Gianni Schicchi, Chaunard, Masterford from Verdi's Falstaff, Sharpless from Madama Butterfly, Rambaldo from La Rondine, and Dandini from La Cenerentola, and maybe to even some extent Marullo from Rigoletto and Il Barone du Foll from La Traviata. Those are roles that are way more suitable for Signore Romano than the deeper, richer Dottore Bartolo. And even with his superb skills as a vocal actor, there were unfortunately tendencies for Signore Romano to bark certain lines as well as sound kind of woofy in certain areas where he needs to sing deeper and richer. So he does need to work on ensuring that he develops his overall vocal richness and depth. However, there were also times that he could also sing with sufficient depth and richness because he is a superb vocal actor. Although there were some shortcomings here and there with Marco Filippo Romano, I can still applaud him for being a superb vocal actor as Dottore Bartolo. He was able to imbue this character with sufficient pomp and a lot of lovability that made him shine in his own special way. So, bravo to Signore Marco Filippo Romano for doing a fine job using his vocal acting to make Dottore Bartolo a charismatic, pompous, and quite lovable old oaf. Manuel Fuentes was in his absolute A game as Don Basilio. He still took advantage of his superb basso cantante voice, which continues to show a lot of promise and a lot of potential for great growth. Yes, when listening to him a little bit more critically, he does seem to have a bit of a problem with throatiness. However, I'm sure that if he can continue singing more pharyngally and correct whatever issues he has with his voice, then this could be a basso cantante who will truly shine. And the examples that I have for Senor Fuentes are the following bassi cantanti and bassi profondi: Ezio Pinza, Tancredi Passero, Fyodor Shaliapin, Nazareno D'Angelis, Jerome Hines, Giorgio Tozzi, Cesare Siepi, Kim Borg, Keith Engen, Nikolai Yaurov, Nikola Gusev, Evgeny Nesterenko, and Samuel Ramey. But when it comes to my top 7 favorite Don Basilios, I can never, ever go wrong with Ezio Pinza, Kim Borg, Jerome Hines, Giorgio Tozzi, Cesare Siepi, Nikolai Gyaurov, and Nikola Gusev. What I can see in Senor Fuentes is a great potential for him to sing Don Giovanni, Mephistopheles, Filippo II, Sparafucile, Ferrando from Il Trovatore, Enrico from Anna Walena, Conte Rodolfo from La Sonnambula, Giorgio from I Puritani, Baldassare from La Favorita, and Ramfis from Aida. And lest I forget about Orvesso from Norma, Marcel from Les Huguenots, and Bertram from Robert le Diable. These are roles that I highly recommend Manuel Fuentes to sing one day because there is a voice right there that is capable of growth in terms of strength and in terms of a much more virile and stronger vocal presence. So I still have to give a lot of kudos to Senor Manuel Fuentes for doing such a grand job as Don Basilio. The material that he has is there, and he has all the potential in the world to keep on growing in virility, strength, and absolutely great basso cantante cavernousness. Dean Murphy grew with virility, vocal strength, and charisma as Figaro, the titular barber of Seville. I have seen this awesome young baritone grow from strength to strength, and just by listening to him tonight, his voice definitely grew in depth, richness, roundness, and volume. There was a stronger vocal presence I've managed to hear in Mr. Murphy tackling Figaro, and he was able to sell the vocal goods effectively and awesomely. And he continues to use his charisma as a singing actor to make Figaro shine. And that is what I could give a lot of props to in terms of Dean Murphy's amazing abilities as a singing actor. So I salute Dean Murphy for a job superbly done. And here's also hoping that he will continue to grow in depth, richness, and virility as a cavalier baritone. Stephen Marsh was an equally virile Fiorello, using his fine bass baritone voice to make the best out of this character part. And while it can use a lot more focus and a great amount of depth to make this character baritone part work, he still has great material to work off of, and also do so with manly charisma and really fine charm working for him. So I definitely salute Stephen Marsh for making the best out of Fiorello, and Jared Wehrlein was absolutely astounding as the officer. At times, his voice reminded me a bit of Samuel Raimi, that incisive edge and that depth that kind of makes him really ideal for a lot of anti-heroes or villains. And I could definitely see a great future in Jared Wehrlein singing Don Basilio one day, and maybe even Don Giovanni, Mephistopheles, Banco, Filippo II, and many other great roles for a basso cantante. So the future is definitely looking so bright for Jared Wehrlein because of his superb technique and his superb basso cantante voice that has so much potential to keep on growing. Speaking of growth, Kieran Carell continues to astound me in terms of his overall vocal growth and development. Yes, it's still a voice that has a kind of colorless edge to it, but it still managed to be a voice so full of nuances, so full of charm, and so full of loveliness that I was able to keep my ears completely open every time he opened his mouth to sing. Yes, I'm still kind of missing that additional richness and that additional depth and overall masculine beauty found in other great tenori leggeri such as Tito Schippa, Koloman von Pataki, Anton der Mota, and my number one favorite interpreter of the young Count Almaviva was none other than Fritz Wunderlich. And lest I forget about his Italian counterpart, Luigi Alva, as well as Alfredo Kraus and Nikolai Gedda. These were superb light lyric tenors and tenori leggeri who had beautiful voices and excellent coloratura. And Kieran Carell's coloratura work was also quite fun to listen to, even with all those embellishments that he managed to produce. This is a voice that still has so much potential to keep on growing in the best way possible, especially in the light lyric tenor repertoire. And I could also see a great future in Kieran Carell singing Nemorino from L'Elisir d'Amore and Ernesto from Don Pasquale, because these are roles that are tailor-made for him, and he has the superb instrument from bottom to top to make any role for a tenore leggero work. And I could even see him as Tonio one day if he continues to develop his instrument in the best way possible. So bravo to Kieran Carell for continuing to grow as a fine late lyric tenor / tenore leggero. Martina Baroni was a fine Rossina in terms of how she was able to take advantage of her creamy lyric mezzo voice and add in a lot of spunk, charisma, charm, vivacity, and that vixen-like kiddinishness that makes her absolutely endearing to watch. Granted, I'm still kind of missing that additional coordinated chest voice, even though she was sufficiently coordinated throughout her vocal registers. But when it comes to certain chest tones, I feel like I'm kind of missing that additional oomph in certain moments. Granted, she still has some of the chest tones, but she could still be committed to them in order to make her voice truly bloom and blossom throughout the theater, and also make it a lot more present. And I really would love for Martina Baroni to continue to use coordinated chest tones to make her voice grow and bloom, and keep on developing her core to ensure that her voice remains as clear and absolutely present as it shall be. It says something when great mezzo-sopranos of the past who sang Rossina, such as Eugenia Mantelli, Giulietta Simeonato, Bianca Maria Casoni, Agnes Balza, Jenna Pederzini, and Lucia Valentini Terrani had great chest tones, and even where Agnes Balzo is concerned, if there is one mezzo-soprano that Martina Baroni should really look into in terms of how to sing properly coordinated chest tones, it has to be Agnes Balza, and especially Giulietta Simonato. So there you have it. Giulietta Simonato and Agnes Balza should be the two mezzo-sopranos that Martina Baroni should consult in order to completely develop her coordinated chest tones and ensure that her voice remains as rich and well-developed as it should be as a proper mezzo. It also says something when coloratura sopranos of the past, such as Maria Barrientos, Mercedes Capsir, Elvira de Hidalgo, Graciela Pareto, Luisa Terrazzini, Amelita Gali Curci, and Maria Galvani had way more coordinated chest tones and also had those piercing top notes, but more than anything, coordinated chest tones to sound fuller, richer, and a lot more amped up in the lower and the middle parts of their voices. It does say something. So she's got a lot to learn from both the mezzo-sopranos and the coloratura sopranos of the past in order to ensure that her chest tones remain as rich as ever and that her core remains indestructible. Because I am sure that if Martina Baroni continues to develop her core and ensures that her core remains intact from bottom to top, then she can have the best future possible with roles such as Arsace from Semiramide, Giulietta from Le Comte d'Hoffmann, Charlotte from Werther, Malika from Lacme, Marchesa Melibea from Il Viaggio a Reims, Isolier from Le Comte Horry, and Siebel from Faust. In terms of other mezzo-sopranos she should listen to, Fiorenza Cosotto could be another mezzo-soprano she could draw inspiration from. Yes, Fiorenza Cosotto is a lot more soprano-like, but she still has great coordinated chest tones, and I'm pretty sure that with inspiration from Signora Cosotto, Martina Baroni could eventually rise to the challenges of singing Adalgisa from Norma and Agnese del Maino from Beatrice di Tenda. The possibilities for this young mezzo-soprano are absolutely endless, so long as she continues to develop her core, so long as she continues to ensure that her technique remains clear and clean, and to also ensure that her voice remains intact with the right repertoire and with great technical development. Maria Vasilevskaya was also astounding as Berta. Yes, she also sang Rossina in the past, but she also stole the show extremely effectively as Berta. She was able to take advantage of her lyric / coloratura soprano voice to make the best out of Berta's solo aria, Il vecchiotto cerca moglie, especially when she blasted some high C's in the Act 1 sextet / cabaletta, that she was able to prove herself to be such an effective singer. She even threw in some more high notes in her solo aria, whether it be a high C or a high D flat or even a high D. She just managed to sell it as Berta and did so in a way that made her quite a vocal miracle. Granted, she could still use a lot of work in developing her core. She could still use a lot of work in ensuring that her chest tones are as solid and strong and mighty as they are. And Maria Vasilevskaya definitely has a voice that can grow in the right direction and that can glow with a lot of brilliance. And sure, my bias is showing when I say that I do prefer a mezzo-soprano singing Berta, because who I have in my ears when it comes to this iconic character part are the likes of Jean Madeira, Margaret Ruggiero, Anna Maria Canalli, Fedora Barbieri, Sally Burgess, Gabriela Carturan, and Stefania Malagu, because all of these mezzo-sopranos that I've listed also have good chest tones, especially where the likes of Jean Madeira and Fedora Barbieri are concerned, because of how they were able to sing a great deal of contralto roles and were always reliable with their chest tones, but I could still give a lot of kudos to Maria Vasilevskaya for what she was able to accomplish tonight as Berta. And I have to give her a whole lot of applause for just making the best out of Berta, her character, and her music. I also have to give a great amount of kudos to Clara-Lisette Kesselman as the notary, and also Derek Hercules Amanatidis for his contribution as Figaro's assistant, and lest I forget about the beautiful playing from Pauli Jemsa on the fortepiano and Stefan Degel as the solo guitarist. So overall, the singing, as well as some of the solo instrumentalists, were able to be at their A game tonight. Marco Filippo Romano may kind of lack a bit in vocal depth because I do prefer a bass baritone or a basso buffo singing Dottor Bartolo a lot more, but he was able to compensate whatever issues that he had with a lot of great comic timing and a whole lot of charisma and a whole lot of fun in making Dottor Bartolo an absolutely lovable oaf. He was just so brilliant in his own special way that I really forgot whatever issues I've had with Marco Filippo Romano. He was that effective as a comic actor and also used his voice to the best of his abilities to make Dr. Bartolo a totally involving character. Loads of kudos also have to go to Manuel Fuentes, Dean Murphy, Kieran Carell, Martina Baroni, and Maria Vasilevskaya for doing such amazing jobs, respectively, as Don Basilio, Fierro, the young Count Almaviva, Rossina, and Berta. They were at their A game tonight, and they were able to muscle everything through with everything they've got and demonstrated true perseverance as performing artists. The conducting done by Friedrich Pretorius was also well done. Sure, there were times that he could go a little bit easy on the brass and the percussion, but his conducting was brisk, effective, lively, and just showed a lot of great timing in terms of just getting the audience totally pumped up. So a lot of kudos definitely had to go to Maestro Pretorius for holding out with the orchestra and for ensuring that the chorus, orchestra, and the singers were at their A game tonight. And what more can you expect from the chorus and orchestra of the Deutsche Oper Berlin? They're absolutely brilliant as they've always been, especially when it comes to bolstering the performances by the main singers, the supporting singers, and of course, bolstering the conducting done by Maestro Friedrich Pretorius. Marco Filippo Romano was definitely a lot of fun as Dottore Bartolo. He may not have that additional depth that I love in many a basso buffo or bass baritone singing the role of Dottor Bartolo, but what he lacked in depth, what he lacked in richness, what he lacked in that additional darkness, he made up for it in terms of his great comic timing, as well as his fun and superb acting skills that managed to make me totally involved as a spectator. So I still have to salute Signore Marco Filippo Romano for what he was able to accomplish as Dottor Bartolo, especially when his performance was bolstered by equally fine and superb singers in the forms of Manuel Fuentes, Dean Murphy, Stephen Marsh, Jared Werlein, Kieran Carell, Martina Baroni, and Maria Vasilevskaya. Everybody was at their A game tonight. Everybody showed perseverance, and I still have to salute Marco Filippo Romano for using his great comic timing to make Dottor Bartolo effective as a character. And for those of you who tuned into this performance of Il Barbiere di Siviglia at the Deutsche Oper Berlin, what did you think of it? Did you feel that Marco Filippo Romano was an effective Dottor Bartolo? Was there something about his voice that you liked? And did you also feel that he was charismatic enough to make Dr. Bartolo alive as a character? Was there another singer who stole his thunder, whether it be Manuel Fuentes or Dean Murphy or Kieran Carell or Martina Baroni or Maria Vasilevskaya? Or did you feel like Marco Filippo Romano was not effective as Dr. Bartolo? And you also feel like the singing was not really to the high standards that you would have loved to listen to? Please let me know in the comments below. Well, that's it for my review of Rossini's Il Barbiere di Siviglia, starring Marco Filippo Romano as Dr. Bartolo. So, Mom, I hope you also enjoyed this second birthday gift I have in store for you. It was definitely a lot of fun making this review dedicated to your very special day. I also hope that you enjoyed my previous review, and I hope that you enjoy this review as much as you did the previous one. So, Mom, thank you so much for your great and wonderful love as a mother, not only to me, but also to my younger sister Thea, to my adoptive sister slash cousin Ilka, and to my younger brother Eno. You are an absolutely amazing mother. I wish you all the best in your life. I also wish, as well as my siblings who are also watching this video, all of the best in your lives and in every endeavor that you have. And here's also wishing a lot of familial love, especially to my mom, who has given everything to ensure that I live my best possible life, especially when it comes to my passions and even practicing my passions and even living out my passions. So I really have to give a lot of love to my mother, and also a huge shout out to everything that she has been doing thus far in my life. I also have to give a lot of love to my younger siblings and even to my dad and my uncles, aunties, and cousins for doing everything they can to be just as supportive of my endeavors. So lots of love to all of you. So tune in tomorrow for my review of the Liederabend at the Deutsche Oper Berlin, La Donna Ideale, starring Kang Yoon Shine Lee, Nina Solodovnikova, and Arianna Manganello. So until then, good night everybody, and happy Halloween month.